Now we just have some question about your experience for early career who are already starting their research journey in some universities. So they're just for a master or PhD student like in from our countries. Still, we don't have some like experience how to read a best way in a scientific article. If I can talk about myself, when I was doing bachelor, I didn't even read one research article. When I went to the China for master, I starting reading there. So can you just help us to tell us like how what is the best way to start to reading a scientific paper and to get the idea from that? Like which part, like what is your criteria to read the scientific paper?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, reading relevant scientific papers is important to understand where certain research fields are at what stage. Also, where what has been done. Even as important to understand is what hasn't been done and what would be relevant. And really to understand where a research field stands and what some of the important open questions are, of course, requires a lot of reading.
Mhm.
And if you read, broadly, then that's very different than if you read about a specific method that you don't fully understand and you go deep
Mhm.
into the method. So there are different types of papers also that need to be read, but there's a time typically for different types of papers. When it comes to doing research, I think an important barrier for people is also to at some point stop only to read, but also start to produce something yourself. So that doesn't mean that you don't continue reading, but I mean, reading everything that somebody points you at, that you're finding a reference that's on your list. I mean, that's easy and keeps you busy. But at some point, you want to become productive yourself, and that means okay. Now sit down and write up the own idea and start working with whatever data. Of course, I mean the reading doesn't stop; it continues,
Mhm.
but it's not the only thing anymore. Um, it really depends on the stage where you are,
Mhm.
and obviously, a new start into a grad program, into your own research topic will always require a lot of reading at the
Yeah.
beginning. But that's not all. At some point, you need to say, okay, I also now change my own mode and go to the stage where I start with my actual research, becoming active myself in terms of doing something, writing something, analyzing, and so on.
Okay, and based on your experience, based on your journey, what you can give advice for the early career researcher if they face any difficulties or like setback, major setback, like they are struggling for any experiment or any like thing for 2 year, but later on they discover, oh, this is the not the thing what I want to do. So they were really disheartened in academia. I see some cases, so they wanna just stop or not want to go continue. So what, how you face like how you handle this hurdle if you feel in your journey, so what can be the advice for that for younger students?
And the first thing is failure and setbacks obviously happen and are integral part of the research process, and people talk more about their successes,
Yeah.
but obviously the failures are what people talk less about. You hear less about, and you get the impression that every else is successful or more successful than I am in terms of that. That's important to understand. The failure is there, and I think in a research group internally, it's very important to also talk openly about the failures. The failures either in terms of some experiment or some things in the research process, but also the failures of getting rejections of manuscripts from journals, which is important on the one hand to see that it's not only me that gets papers rejected, it's also others, and discuss which journals, what experience has been made, how to deal with that, so that it becomes more, something that, okay, it's normal part, and I'm not getting so frustrated from that that I really get, depression issues or something like that. So that's the first thing. I would always, I'd encourage people in my own group to always, come up and discuss with others, including me as the supervisor, where they stand on a regular basis, because getting some outsiders or half outsiders perspective on something, we say, come on, that happens all the time, don't worry, let's do it this way. That can certainly be very important as not losing confidence, and therefore just keeping things for yourself, not talking about it, at least internally in the group with the supervisor and maybe other colleagues. That should always be done, and that's important for the mental health of also people to strive. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you very much for a wonderful advice. Now we just have our last part about the scientific writing based on your experience. So, what is the best way to write a scientific paper? To start writing a scientific paper?
I mean, typically, I would say in most of the times you have done various types of analysis, because you know what questions you have, you know what the descriptives are, you know what your model estimates look like. So the storyline should be relatively clearly in your head already before you're starting to write. And if that's the case, maybe useful to start writing an abstract, a few sentences of the main storyline, and then make sure that the rest of what you're writing is always keeping, the thread of that storyline, because that prevents you from writing too many details about things that are actually rather distracting, that don't contribute to the storyline. So that's important. Deciding of what needs to be in the paper and what's rather, lengthening the paper but not adding really to the storyline requires, first of all, that you know the storyline that you want to write up, and that's the key part. And I think building the storyline is something that I, as a professor, uh, usually tend to contribute to quite a bit. So we sit together with the students over some of their result tables, and then you see, okay, that's interesting, and well, that's actually pointing at this, and try this, and then you're, jointly developing that storyline. That's the part where I feel often students need the most advice and mentorship in terms of building that storyline, and then it typically works once that's relatively clear.
Okay, thank you very much for the last question. So, based on your career, so what you can give the golden advice for the early career, which can be like the future, like professor or like researcher. So, based on your experience, what you can give the golden advice, like to go in this pathway or this, or how to behave in academia, like that.
Obviously there are rules, written and unwritten rules of what matters in particular disciplines, and that is partly a bit different from one discipline to the other. I'm somewhere at the intersection of agriculture and sustainability research, quite interdisciplinary, but I'm also an economist, and economists do have rules that are different from the rest of the science. And therefore, it also depends a little bit what career you want to have. If then you want to be a professor in economics, then you need to probably understand those specific rules and follow them. But otherwise, I'm a person who's typically very, very interested in interdisciplinary research, also because, the more you're advancing in your own career, the more relevant it becomes for you to have a real world impact, not only an impact in terms of, citations, but to really contribute to making the world a better place, influencing policies, influencing thinking. And that's not working when you're only talking to your own discipline. So you need to be able to see the broader setting of problems, to also understand how other disciplines are looking at that question, and how people from outside of science, like policymakers or the wider public, are looking at some of those questions. That may not be relevant if you're so into some lab research that nobody else understands. But if you're addressing broader questions, it's useful to talk to many people and understand their views, and talk about your research and do that in a way that they would understand broadly what you're doing. That helps you to ask your questions in a much more relevant way. And to write in a way that's much more relevant also in terms of the size of your readership. And in the end, that's obviously something that's playing back positively on your own career, because if you write for many more people from also neighboring disciplines, then you're getting many more citations. So it is, in the end, I think how you're doing it, not seeing your discipline too narrowly, but also understanding some of what's happening outside of your discipline. That's an advice that I would certainly give to young scholars, without forgetting that there are certain rules also in the discipline which do play a role for the next career step as well.
Okay, thank you very much again for giving us a time. So really much appreciated for your talk, and it's really enjoyable. Even I learn a lot. So I hope for my audience will get a benefit a lot from you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for your initiative.